Once again, this is Coach Neal. We're in Coach Neal's corner. This is second take. We had a little bit of mechanical difficulty, but that's okay. With us tonight, we have the famous and the most amazing and one of the most brilliant and just beautiful women I know. This is Scarlett Delgado. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and why you're so important.
Yeah, well, my name is Scarlett Delgado. I am the two-time consecutive Continental champion of the Americas. I am ranked top 5 under International Boxing Association, and I'm also the current Canadian champion for Team Boxing Canada in Olympic style boxing.
There we go. There we go. We got a banger today. So before this, we got into a little bit of conversation, so I have an idea where it's going to go, but I am just so incredibly impressed with Scarlett. Like, already I know her, and I've known her for a while, and she's one of the most brilliant young ladies I know, like factually. Like, she is so smart. I can't even begin to tell you how she's already helped me through a lot of different things. But on top of being so smart, she's like the biggest savage of a competitor that I think I know at this point. And with that, it's cool to see her competitiveness, because you don't see that often. And I know a world level champion when I see one. I know one. Like, you are that. Like, if nobody tells you that, I can tell you personally.
Thank you.
You have that competitiveness in you. It's just a matter of everything lining up, and you will get it if you want it. Like, there's no question in my mind. So with that, let's just jump right back into it, and let's understand why she's so interesting and so different. And my thoughts are, you are being so competitive and having such a strong competitive nature, right? I don't know a lot of people that are as competitive as you are. What's it like being such a competitive person around the average person who's just here to box?
So with being competitive, there's definitely a little bit more of an edge, and there's a purpose to why I do what I do. So I think that's really important for people to understand, even if they're doing it just recreationally. Yeah. They have to really understand why they do something like combat sport. Yeah. It takes a different kind of person to be willing to step into the ring and think, or a mat, and think, this person is going to punch me in the face, or this person is going to try to break my wrist. Like, you have to be a different kind of person. So when I go into this field, for me personally, my purpose is because when my grandfather passed away, he was my safety net. Oh, wow. He was my whole world. My grandparents, they raised me until he passed away. Wow. And so for me, I lost my father at the time. And so I needed to learn how to protect myself, to find that safety net for myself. I didn't want to seek it in somebody else, because at a young age, I didn't feel like I had a lot of trust in others at the time. So my father, Rafael Delgado.
Battle Arts, let's go.
Right, Papa. He's one of the best boxing coaches in the country, and I'm lucky to have him as my dad. So he had this world at my fingertips. So coming into this world, I don't think that my dad ever thought that I was going to want to compete. I never thought that. My mom never thought that. It wasn't like I was a Rocky prodigy or anything like that, like these 7-year-olds on YouTube doing these pad work. You know? It was nothing, anything like that. But yeah, once I started feeling that strength, that feeling like I actually know what I'm doing, and I feel like I can protect myself, and I feel like I have this edge that I just don't want to let go, and I need to test myself. I need to see, like, do I actually know what my dad is teaching me? Do I actually know how to do it, or is this all just here in the class? That's why I said to my dad, like, I need to compete. And you know, that was a battle alone, but eventually he gave in.
That's cool. Yeah, it's crazy that because he knows the brutal side of that. So what you're saying to me right now just is, again, it's so interesting. Like, it's like a box of chocolates, folks. You just never know what you're gonna get when you talk to these wild and crazy people. But listen, like, so did it make you feel safe the stronger you got, the better you got?
Yeah, because it wasn't just the physical part of the boxing, but it was the mental part, which, by the way, I got most of my mental confidence from the wrestling I did. Because when I did the wrestling 3 years, no, seriously, there is something different about pressing your forehead against another person's forehead. Just like that.
Don't ban us for it.
You know, in boxing, you can box on the outside. You can kind of get away with that for a little bit. But in wrestling, it's like your first fight, your first match. No, you are right in there. You are right in the person's face. You're feeling their skin. You're feeling their breath, and you're feeling they want to take you down. That brings out another animal in you, and you really find out if you're a fighter right there at that moment. Because a lot of people just give in, right? We all watch these wrestlers, their first wrestling match, and they have to kind of build into it. And you see some people that even it's their first wrestling match and they just go for it.
They're just naturally
two different types of people in this world.
People are built differently. And that's brilliant, yes. And then, yes, Scarlett was also a very decorated young wrestler, for the record. That's amazing to me in that basically what you're saying is you felt very protected at one point and you were nicely cared for, and then you got thrown out into the cold and you felt alone? Or so you felt alone and you felt like, you know what, nobody's gonna protect me. I need to protect myself. And I need to get stronger and more savage. And you made the decision. You made the decision. And then you went and wrestled, and then you went and boxed.
I made that decision because my father wouldn't let me box. He was teaching me kickboxing first. I was learning how to strike and everything. And he was
even though you weren't trying to mess it up, you messed it up big time, bro.
He was saying like, no. I mean, his side of the story is that my mom, which I mean, I could see that. I think I remember my mom, because I was very young, but I remember my mom giving him a hard time just in general, letting me compete. So I think he was kind of like on the fence, oh, I don't know, like her mom's upset and this and that. So he said no, but I didn't have to ask my dad's permission to wrestle in high school. So
there you go.
I just went and did it.
Shout out to high school wrestling. A lot of us went around our parents' backs to make sure we did it and got it. High school wrestling rocks. But again, on so many levels, that's so amazing and so deep. Like taking responsibility for yourself is definitely a sign of a champion, right? Taking ownership and being honest with yourself about it, because you could hide and protect yourself. A lot of people these days protect themselves and hide their kids and don't put challenges in front of them and don't allow kids to grow and get tough and be resilient. This is resilience. This is how you build resilience, right?
Humans were not designed to be sedentary humans. Like, we're not designed to be sedentary species. We need to have that fighting spirit. Now, not all of us are meant for those things. Not all of us are meant to be in combat, but an element of it needs to be introduced to everybody at some point so that they know their limits. People need to know what their limits are going into this world. Well,
I think I would add to that, and I think people set their own limits. And the challenge is a lot of people aren't ambitious enough to set the big limits, and that's what decides out of 100 people, who's going to be the top 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
And everybody else is going to participate.
And you know what, to their credit too, that doesn't mean that they have to necessarily compete.
No.
But just to show up and constantly want to be better, that alone is still a challenge.
Well, and then you have the side that there's so many different opportunities too for you to be successful at different things. So you're not going to be successful at everything. So your top 1% is not going to be the same top 1% in your hobby. Right? So that's the beauty of how we evolve, I think, as a species. But I want to dive deeper into, and I hope you're comfortable with it, like, tell me then, next step, once you started feeling a little more secure, like what then made you say, you know what, I'm getting good at this, like now I want to go prove myself, or I want, like, what was the switch from protecting myself, okay, I feel safe now, what allowed me to go offense?
Right. So once I had the green light to start competing and I started to get a taste of those feelings right before you enter the ring of like, oh, wow, I'm nervous. There was this misconception between my father and I for a long time where he thought that I was nervous to be in front of people and fight. He thought it was like a performance thing. And for me, I didn't really understand what it was for a long time. And then once I got my performance coach and we started diving deep into what was going on with me, my dad had been putting so much effort into me for the training. You know, we had spent countless hours, so many tears, so many fights, so many fights. And I realized that because I lost my grandfather and it was so traumatic for me at the time, I was subconsciously afraid that if I didn't do well in the ring, that I may lose my dad too. Like I thought, I don't want to think that I'm wasting his time training me, and that I can't reach to the level that he believes I can get to.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of pressure that I didn't even realize I was putting on myself.
Wow.
Like I didn't know that that's why I was so nervous.
Yeah.
But once I accepted that and once I realized like, wow, okay, like this is what I'm feeling right now. And then I could just work through it. It's like, no, it's not like that. And then I had to figure out, okay, why do I want to do the sport? Because if I don't have if I don't understand my purpose, then I can't be doing it at all. I'm not there for just a trophy. I'm not there just for the title. There has to be a deeper reason why I want to get to a level like a national championship, and then an international, and then a world championship, and then an Olympic championship. Like these are all different levels of a mindset. These required to be a different type of person. And before anybody takes a step in that direction, they have to really understand why they do it. Because most of these champions that you see, most of these gold medalists, it's not because necessarily they're the best. Some yes, not necessarily because they're the best, but all the highs and lows that come with competing, all like, you know, the political stuff, the robberies, things that are going on outside of the sport that can really, you know, passings of family members, breaking off relationships or whatever, mental health issues. All of these can bring an athlete right off the course, because to get to these levels, you got to be really committed to it. So most of the time, a lot of these things, when you get to that level, it's not necessarily who's the best, it's who was the most resilient, who could go through all these hoops and then still show up the next day and say, I'm here to give 100%.
Yeah, shout out to my man Sly Stallone. I watched your show last night, your documentary. It's not about how hard you get hit, it's about how you get up after you get hit, 100%. Just that boxing metaphor, because we're talking about boxing. No, but listen, I want to know what it is. Why? Why are we here now?
Why are we here?
Yeah, now we're going after the world title, right?
Right.
Why? What's your why?
My why is because when I lost my grandfather, he died in my arms. So I felt him, like his body going. That was my first experience with death, and it was somebody that was so close to me as I considered him my father. So that was the worst feeling in the world. And once I started feeling like I could protect myself, that feeling, that regaining, that confidence, that awareness, that self-worth, that's where I want everybody to be able to see something like that and say, I can do that. Whether it's in sport, whether it's in just their everyday career. But I think that my story isn't unique. I think a lot of people go through tragedies in their life, sometimes earlier on in their childhood than others. But I think it's really important for people to see that these things do happen, and you can, as long as you keep showing up, you can be a better version of yourself. You can make it through these difficulties, and you can do incredible things in your life. So every day I fight, that's always in the back of my head. I'm fighting for that little girl that lost her grandfather. I'm fighting for her.
Oh, that's heavy.
Yeah.
That is so. Now to that point, building resilience can come in so many different facets, right? Like you can build resilience in so many ways, but that is such a profound way for you to show that you're resilient. Like to go through such a tragedy, learn how to protect yourself, and then build on that, and to continue to press on with that as your motivating drive. Like you got to write a book about it, right? No, I'm not even joking. There's got to be a movie about it, because those are the things that truly inspire people. Like someone can hang on to that story and be inspired by that, you know, and who knows what that will then materialize out of this experience that we have right now. Like who knows what this person can do? Who knows what you're gonna do as a result of that? You know, that's incredible. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. I know it sounds tragic and all that stuff, but I think that is beautiful.
Thank you.
Because resilience, like diamonds are beautiful, right? Like, and
they're only through pressure.
Right? You build them through pressure. You build them, like some of the most beautiful things are built through force and pressure. That's so heavy. Like that is, again, don't know what's gonna come out of these, and I just need to gather myself for a minute, because that one hit hard.
It's it's one of those things too that I try to remind everybody, because when I tell them the story, like the people that are the closest to me, and I tell them in detail the stuff that had happened, I always put like, don't feel bad, right? Because it's okay. Like this is life,
right?
And this is part of the process. Like that's something that took me a long time to work out, and that's something that my coach and I worked on a lot, was taking accountability and responsibility for, like, I'm not at fault or responsible for what happened to me, but I'm 100% responsible for how I respond to it. And taking accountability, it's like, yeah, okay, this happened to me, but that can't be the reason why. For example, okay, I'm really like upset about the stuff that happened with my grandfather, so the next time that I lose somebody, I'm gonna completely fall apart because, oh my God. It's like, I can't do that to myself.
No.
I can't do that to myself. I have to keep pushing forward.
100%. I think at its core, that is the secret to life. That is our life mission. That is what life is really about. Like, at its core.
Absolutely.
Not, you're given what you're given, and you take responsibility, and you have to be honest with yourself, and then make the most of what it is that you're given.
Absolutely.
I think that, and I think, you know, whatever your religion, whatever your background, however way you see life, there has to be some comfort in, we can all agree on the fact that we don't know how we got here, we don't know where we're going, we don't know why we're here, but we're given something, and it's up to us to work with it.
Absolutely.
Right? And whatever you want to create, whatever you want to materialize out of this experience, it has almost everything to do with the experience that you're having. And it just kind of grows on itself. You just keep building on top of layer on top of layer.
1000%.
And that's how you create your personality, your identity, your why, your drive, your goal, and then your experiences, and then eventually your accolades, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people fall short, and I'd like to say it because a lot of times they're not really tested.
Yeah, absolutely, 1000%.
They don't put themselves in the fire.
1000%. You know, my younger sister Naomi and my two younger cousins Tyler and Derek, I'm very close to them.
Yeah.
Like, I've, you know, especially Tyler and Derek, I've been by their side since they were born. My mom and their mom are very close, so literally every day. They're more like siblings. And every time that I see them go through their own problems in life, which are very different, right? The generation is so different. They're now in a generation of technology. And every time I see them go through their stuff, or now Naomi, she's just, you know, she's halfway through middle school. If I could just give them some of my memories, just to see, I can tell them everything, but if they don't experience it, it's really hard for them to relate to it. It's something else.
Yeah, and to that point, it's when you put yourself in the fire, right? Like, I always compare a lot of things to wrestling, of course, right? That's my go-to. That's my background. So when you put yourself up against someone who you think is stronger than you or better than you, your response is what matters more than anything else. Your mental response, because if you show them that you're afraid, then it strengthens them. If you show them that you're insecure or intimidated, they respond to that. If you show them you are not afraid, they respond to that. They could even respond to that more aggressively than when they think you're afraid. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But it doesn't matter what happens. You put yourself through the fire. Be brave enough to put yourself into the fire, and whether it's through competition or through life, people going to war. You know, God bless the things that are happening, but some people are put in some very challenging circumstances, and then when they come out, you see these beautiful people who are resilient and they have character. You know what I'm saying? And
I do.
To me, I listen to your story and I know what I know about you, and I see your character, and I think you would be an ideal candidate to be like a prime minister. No, I'm not. I'm not. Yeah, I know politics, buddy. We need people like you running our world, because you are incredibly intelligent.
Thank
you're
you.
super smart. You know you are one of the smartest people you know, right? And one of the smartest people I know. And then when you see how disciplined you are, and we're gonna get into, because I want to get back to how meticulous you are. You're gonna tell us about how you prepare for competition. You're super meticulous. You're very calculating. And you just got this fight. And you are honest. You are super honest with so many things, like everything that you're talking about right now. You're comfortable enough to express yourself. This is your true self. And I find a lot of people slow themselves down because they don't really act from their true self.
The authenticity.
The authenticity. So you can authentically chase your dream. How many people can say that? How many people can say I am authentically chasing my dream, being who I am, and I'm not pretending to be somebody on Instagram trying to do something else? You
Well,
get what I'm saying?
that's exactly what it is, because if you're not authentic with yourself,
Yeah.
then, you know, especially when you go into something like combat sport, you will be exposed.
Right.
You will be exposed, and you get more bees with honey than you do vinegar.
Facts.
So if you're in the ring and you've created this very false persona of yourself, the amount of phone calls that you get after, regardless of the win or the loss, like you see. I have people that will call me regardless if I win or if I lose.
Right.
Because if they're part of my team, if they're part of my journey, and like they've created that relationship with me, I'm just as much as their friend as they are with me. So they feel for me and I feel for them in all our highs and lows. So I take pride in having those kind of connections, those kind of relationships. I think that's really important. It's so important.
100%.
It's so important.
Well, how many, competitors you see walking around, especially when they're successful, with all these fake people around them, and it builds them up, and then when they get hit, and this is a boxing debate, and this is very, it can be a little bit hard for some people to hear, because. Anyway, a lot of people idolize Mike Tyson, like myself. Like I thought Mike Tyson's the man, right? But then I heard Teddy Atlas give his take on Mike Tyson. Have you heard that yet?
I have not.
Go watch it.
Okay.
He gave I think it was on a Joe Rogan podcast, where he said, and I mean, he could be right, he could be wrong, who knows? But the beauty about Mike Tyson is that he has become so authentically honest with who he is as a man, versus different from who he was as a young person. Like he had to create that persona as a young person to be that savage. But Mike Tyson might not have been a real savage. And Teddy Atlas says, well, he's like 50-5. Right, something like that. The problem is, or 49-5, something like that, don't quote me. But in life and in the real tests that he's ever had, he's only 0-5.
I know what you,
because everybody else that went up against him was intimidated by him.
Right.
And the 5 people that were not afraid of him, starting with Buster Douglas.
Right.
He lost that because of the fear, and because his real character at that time showed itself. Yeah. Now that's controversial, super controversial. But being a coach, to me, that was huge, because I think of all the kids and people that I've coached, and myself, and when you're truly challenged, right? So for example, maybe I'll do it with you right now, ask you, the hardest match you've ever fought. How did you present yourself in that match?
The hardest match, funny enough, though not one that I lost, funny enough.
But that's even better.
But the hardest match that I had was my debut bout for Boxing Canada.
That's amazing.
I was in my dad's home country, Ecuador, and my dad and I were not on speaking terms. So him and I weren't talking.
More challenge in the man's country, and you guys are not talking.
Yes, it was. It was
hit
rough.
hard.
It was rough, because obviously, if I'm in Ecuador, I want to be able to talk to my dad about everything I'm experiencing. I didn't have neither of my coaches physically there with me, Gaetan or my awesome boxing coach, Sidney Vanderpool, who also was a former Canadian champion himself.
I recognize that name. Yeah, that's dope. Yeah.
So neither of them were there physically for me. I had to just kind of, with the time difference, well, it was not much of a time difference, but just go FaceTime.
Yeah.
And I was going in against the #1 seed of the tournament, and it was my first time on Boxing Canada, and I knew that, and the national team coaches, they also were not familiar with me. This is my, they had their pickings, who was going to get gold and whatnot. And the girl that I was fighting, she actually had fought my teammate, Mandy Boujol, the 2-time Olympian.
Wow.
She fought her before. So she had a lot of experience, especially internationally. Yeah. And a lot of people were using this language with me, like, this is going to be great experience for you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's loser talk.
Yeah.
Loser talk.
Exactly.
Loser talk.
Exactly. Yeah, because even going into that tournament, they had a boxing coach ask us 2 questions, all the athletes, a 5-minute interview, 2 questions. The first one was, how many fights do you expect to win at this tournament?
Before you competed?
Yeah, before we took off on the plane.
Wow.
I was like,
Shout out to crappy coaches. for the record. Yeah.
You know the coach too.
I do? Oh.
Yeah, I won't say it. I won't
Okay.
say it. He
All
knows.
right.
If he's watching this, he knows. Anyways, because we had a good chat after I got gold.
Yeah.
So he's like, he asked me that question, and I said, I expect to get gold. And he said, Scarlett, this is your first time on the international stage. A lot of these girls have a lot of experience. Like, let's try to be realistic.
I hate that word.
I was like, oh, I plan on leaving with gold.
Yeah.
The second question was, where do you plan on placing in the world rankings by the end of the year? So I was like, okay, it is my first year. Like, obviously I haven't been able to show up at other tournaments. So be fair, 82 countries, top 5. And he's like, Scarlett. And I got really mad at him. I was like, top 3. And he was like, all right, whatever. Yeah. So I went going into that fight with the Dominican, and I knew it's like, if I don't get through this fight, like, I don't know how they're gonna measure me. And then I had to put all that aside and be like, you know what, it doesn't matter. I've done, at that point, it had been 10 years of the sport. It had been 10 years of practice. I've had so many fights. I was fighting with my dad. I was fighting with, so many things that were going on in my life, even outside the sport. And this was my first time at this level, which is a huge fight alone. And I thought, it doesn't matter. All I got to do is go in there and show up. Just do exactly what I've been planning to do for all this whole time. And that's exactly what I did. And that girl was tough.
So what was the hardest part of the match? Did she hit you? What was the hardest thing that you had to overcome?
First 30 seconds. The first 30 seconds, she was a firecracker. She was like just throwing
She wanted to get you out of there quick.
Yeah. She was throwing flurries. She was just in my face, like in and out, in and out, in and out. And I was like, oh my God. Like, just trying to take a step back. And I went back to my dad's teachings because he has it so programmed in me. He always said to me,
shout out to good coaches that program the foundations early. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
He said, like, when things are getting overwhelming, just go back to the basics, go back to your jab, move around and go back to your jab. So that's what I did. I started circling, popping her with the jab, and I noticed she couldn't handle the movement. So once I started circling, switching directions, she was kind of stumbling and she was not picking her shots well. And I was like, oh, now I got you. And then I started picking it up. And then I started throwing my flurries. Coming to the third round, because I was up a round and I was down 1 round. So it came down to the third round. And I just knew, I was like, I was thinking about my grandfather, my grandmother. I knew they were both watching me. I was like, I know my dad's watching me wherever he is, despite the fight. I knew for sure he'd be watching me. And I knew my team from Sid's gym. I know they were watching me and cheering me on. I knew Gaetan was watching me. And I could feel the presence and the spirit and the love. I was like, I'm here and I remember my purpose. It's like, I got to do this for me. Like, this is my time right now. So I got up and I was like, oh, this sucks for her, but my punches are not stopping in this round. And that's all I did, was I just went for it and I just completely overwhelmed her and I won.
That's amazing. So that right there, like, again, one of the best freaking stories I've ever heard, like, in terms of competition. It's like you're no stranger to the fire.
No.
Right? Like, so full disclosure, I had a name for this podcast and everything. We were gonna call this the big bounce back. Screw that. We're throwing that shit out. You're no stranger to the fire.
No.
Like, you're born in the fire.
Yeah.
Like, you went into the fire with more experience than this seasoned veteran. Because she might have had 100 fights, who cares? Your fights and your experiences in life got you to a point where you're like, there is nothing that you can do to me that I haven't seen before that's gonna intimidate me.
Exactly, that's exactly how I felt.
And at the same time that you're in this ring, you're having battles in the ring, consciously with yourself, with your dad, with your friends and whatever, and these coaches, you're battling all these different battles and you still were able to center yourself and get clear and go back to the basics. And then, like, that's what you call resilience. Like, there is no better picture. Let me not disrespect anybody. Very few pictures can be painted about resilience better than that, right? Let me reword that. There are very few ways that you can find an example of resilience in that moment. Like, that's amazing. And again, this is not scripted. I had no clue about that. That's amazing. And like
that comes from like years of having those kinds of uncomfortable conversations with Gaetan. Like, we sit there and
Gaetan, I need to meet Gaetan. Gaetan, me and you need to hang, bro. Shout out to Gaytan.
He's
You
the
are
best.
incredible. I
the
got
best.
some. I got some clients for you, Gaytan.
He's the best. No, he's mine. He's not taking any more clients.
Facts. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. But like, I as a coach, I feel and mentor, I feel my biggest challenge is to get people to realize, like, the only way that I can help you is if you're honest and authentic.
Absolutely.
I cannot help you if you pretend to be something or pretend to be someone else.
Because then you're both wasting each other's time.
Because we don't know where your bar is.
Yeah.
We don't know how to get you to the next level. And so many times I've had, and it's funny, a lot more times it happens when I coach girls and women.
Yeah.
You tell them.
I'm at fault for that too. I'm at fault for that.
Right? You try to explain to them, right now, we're here. I know you think you might be here, but right now you're here.
Yeah.
And now we have to be honest and do what we need to do to get to here from here.
Yeah.
But if we think we're here and try to get to the next level while we're here,
yeah,
the things that you need to learn here is not going to help you at this.
No, I'm totally at fault for this.
Isn't
because
that
even
amazing?
Gaytan and I, we recently had a conversation about being open and honest with each other, because I have moments where I don't always show up my best. I'm not superhuman. You know, sometimes I have my moments, and I recently had one. And you know, Gaytan was on me, and I so much appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I feel it. Yeah. Like, if there's one thing in the world that I hate so much is if, like, I disappoint him, because he has so much faith in me. Like, we're not blood related. Yeah. But I can feel his unconditional love for me.
Wow.
And I have so much respect and love for him, unconditional. Because of what he's done for me.
I want to support a person like Gaytan.
Yeah, he's the most amazing, like what he's done for me. Because how I can stand here and talk to you. Because even if I have this blueprint, there's many people in this world that have this blueprint, but they're never guided on the right path because they lack that guidance. And I was so fortunate to have somebody like him to put me and redirect me and put me on this path. Like, I'm very coachable because I'm able to take accountability and listen to the insight, because I don't have this closed off mind. I don't think like, oh, I'm the best, and you know, I don't need to this, that, whatever, or if I lose a fight, oh, I was robbed and this and that. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Like, all that stuff is all garbage that people try to tell themselves to protect their own ego. And that ego's gotta die. 100%. That ego has to die. Like, you need it in the moment of competition. You need to have that superhuman power, but you also to turn it off and to turn it on.
That's amazing. And I was talking to a couple of my athletes today actually about support network too. Like, people misunderstand how important it is to have the right support.
Absolutely.
I won't get into it too much, but if you don't have the right support, so there's almost like things that are integral to your career that I think you have to be disciplined and you have to be smart and you got to work hard and all that stuff. But I find the most important thing once you have those things is your support network. Yes. Because so many people will work so hard to build themselves up and get to a certain point, and it just takes one loser to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so hard, especially when you're in the middle of getting ready for something very important, and it knocks you off. It takes you so much longer to, and if it comes between two really skilled, well-supported, everything's equal, and they're about to face off, and one person has a small kink in their armor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1000%. When you watch the Olympics and you watch, you know, I'll go back to combat sports because this is our main focus right now. Yeah. But how can you say between these two people in the finals, who's better? How do you say that? You know what I mean? They're both incredible. They're both the top in the world. They're both right there fighting. You know, and sometimes styles make a fight. But I believe too that everybody has a day where they can be beat.
100%.
You know what I mean? And sometimes, like you said, like, it'd take that one person to wake up on the wrong side of the bed or to hear that one wrong thing. Because when you're at that point, it's so fragile. The differences are so minimal. You got to be 100%. If you're 99, that person could have that 1% extra in them. 100%. Like, it's so true. And it's so true.
What I think it goes back to at that point is the resilience.
Absolutely, yes. That's what this life is. It's resilience.
So you prepare, and that's why we compete. And then that's why so often I think in a lot of sports, like in boxing, I'm challenging you because I don't know for sure, and this is because it's not my area, but doesn't most often like the ugly fighter wins? More often? Or the fighter, let me put it this way, the fighter who is comfortable in the ugliest situations maybe.
Like if, okay.
Does that make sense?
So you mean like in a really sloppy fight?
No.
Or-
I'm saying you get two top tier fighters.
Okay, yeah.
Like one of my favorite fights of all time is my man Deontay Wilder and my man Tyson Fury. Right? Do you remember that fight?
Yes.
Right? Like it was crazy.
Yes,
back
it
and
was.
forth, back
So
and forth.
good.
2 knockdowns
Yeah,
each.
so good.
Crazy.
Yes.
Right? Who comes out on top?
Right.
Is the one guy who was willing to die.
Yes. I like that. Willing to die.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Deontay was probably willing to die too. No,
Yep.
not taking anything away from him. But at that key point,
Yep.
right? Tyson got up.
Yep.
And to me, when it comes to who's better, to your point, with 2 people who are evenly matched.
Yeah.
And if both of them don't have any kinks in their armor that
Yep.
day, everybody got the same amount of sleep or similar sleep
Yep.
and is comfortable at the same level that they're supposed to be comfortable, like who wins?
Ooh, that's really hard because you know what? I've never even thought about that because so often, you know what? When we were at the Pan Ams, I have this teammate, Wyatt Sanford, who won the gold at the Pan Ams in 63.5 kilos. And he showed up there and beat the Dominican, he beat the Cuban, he beat the Mexican, he beat another, I can't remember, so I'm not gonna make up a country. But he went in there with so many different styles and he was so relentless. And all of us were not certain if he was gonna beat the Cuban because the Cuban I think was like a silver world medalist or something like that, just really top tier. And you had these 2 fighters go toe to toe. And I think it's like when you have these 2 fighters in there, I don't think necessarily the messier one. I just think, you know what? I don't believe that there's ever a point where 2 fighters are in there at their 100% peak. Because I think during the fight, one of them is going to see that flinch in the other person. One of them in the midst of the fight. And that person, when they see it, that's their opportunity in that moment to go for blood. So it's like, if that person sees that one little weakness, like, oh, he keeps dropping this one hand, or, oh, every time we're pulling out of the engagement, his hands kind of slowly come down. Those tiny little things that we're all looking for. I think that one person always has an edge where they see it before the other person and they start to capitalize on it right away. I think.
I want to throw a little fly into that one.
Yeah.
But what about that person who does that and gets hit, but still gets back up? What does that do to the other person?
Well, if it's a scored fight, it depends who's judging.
I got you.
Subjective.
So we're getting to the technical part of it.
Yeah,
I'm thinking
it's so subjective.
but just the mental side of it. Like to me, when a person gets hit and takes that hit and keeps coming forward, I think that messes up the person who does the hit.
It could.
Right?
It could.
Or unless that person who throws a hit is just a savage as well.
Yeah.
And then said, well, I'm bringing more.
That's what I mean.
It's so,
that's what I mean. It's so hard to say because you have that one person who could see those things and just keep going and capitalize on those openings. It's so hard to say.
That's amazing.
Because then it comes down to, well, which judges, how are they feeling today? Because then it's not the fighters how they're feeling, and how are the judges feeling then.
Wow.
That's a really hard one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's amazing. We can go on like that. It seems like for a long time.
That's
because we're gonna
ask my dad about that.
Yeah, we're having a good time. But let's go back to something I want to touch before we end this, because we're not gonna keep going for too long. But I want you to tell me about your preparation, not preparation, but your lead up to a tournament and then your lead up to a fight and the things that you do, because I think you explained it earlier, and that is so incredible, because that adds another component to why you're a champion and why I believe that you can be a world champion, right? So what are the meticulous things that you do? So you wake up, night before the fight.
Right.
Let's go night before the fight and then take us right through to first punch.
So again, Gaetan, my coach, he has me very, very well trained in this, where just as much as I mentioned before, it's important to conserve your physical energy the night before the fight, also your mental energy. So there's a time to be on and there's a time to be off. And when it's time to be off, it's time to be off.
Sorry, one quick thing to interrupt. How do you turn off?
You gotta let it go. You got to let go of the things that you can't control.
Wow.
You have to focus on what you can control.
So you don't try to just, it's not about just distracting yourself with TV or distracting yourself with it.
No, you gotta let it go.
You gotta surrender.
Because you could be distracting yourself with TV, but it can still be running loops in your head if you don't let it go. That
is heavy.
Yeah.
I knew that, but I never applied that in terms of my coaching. And you just gave me another dimension.
Yeah.
That's a Gaitan. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
Because sometimes too, even like, because I mentioned to him, I think when I was going to Pan Am's, I said, oh, I'm gonna bring this book and this book, because I always have all these materials to think about, like a kind of stoic philosophy. I always try to keep that buzzing in my head. And he even mentioned to me, you know, also bring something just to enjoy, so that when you turn off, you really just turn off. Don't think so much into like the thought process and the this and that, because that can get you riled up so quick. Just something to turn off.
It's funny you say that. When I used to compete, I used to get lost in books too. Like in the middle of a tournament, I was that guy, and I wasn't a geek. It's funny, not a big school guy, but I would get lost in a book, and that's when I'd have my best performances. That's
because you turned off. Yeah. Because you conserve that mental energy. You're not thinking and overthinking and all this and all that. Like that's exactly what it is, to turn off and then on. So I think, okay, up until that point, and sometimes I'll do a mental checklist. Like, is there anything else in my training I could have done to this point? No. Did I do everything health-wise? Yes. Am I missing anything? No. I'm stepping into that ring tomorrow, regardless of how I feel. Yes. Okay. That's it. Turn off.
Turn off. And then you go to bed that night and you get up, and then what?
And then I stay turned off until, you know, we go do our weigh-ins. I make weight. All right, the first part of the fight's over. Weigh-ins are done. I can rest. I can go recover. I can go rehydrate. That's key first, is hydration. I always like to feel. So I go get hydrated, and then I just relax. Again, turn off. Start to move around a little bit, maybe just walk around just to get my blood flowing, maybe an hour before we get to the venue. Once we step foot on the venue, that's when I start to slowly turn on. And then once my warm-up starts, now I'm dialed in, but I take it moment by moment. So first I focus on the stretching, just that. And then I focus on my first round of shadow boxing, just that. Then the second, then the third, and then I put my focus on, okay, now we're going in the ring. Here's my game plan. Here's my backup game plan. This is my third backup game plan. I am prepared for whatever this person is coming into the ring with. They don't matter to me. It's only what I'm going to do. That's the only thing that matters. And I keep it at that. I don't care if it's a world champion across the ring. I don't care if this person has like 10 knockouts their last fight or this or that. Not that I've first anybody like this, but it doesn't matter to me because I have faith in my preparation. And I don't need to think about that stuff. That's just junk. So I'm getting that ring regardless.
That's amazing. And her preparation, we're gonna put some clips of that, right, Harrison, at the beginning? Let's get some clips of how she prepares, because she is a savage. And full disclosure too, I started boxing with her dad and my son at the same time and stuff. And I still say wrestling is the tough sport on the planet. I don't care what anyone says. Hey, right? Let's just say, put it out there. But boxing is freaking hard. Right? Because, so he put me in, for some reason, I think because he was trying to have fun and make fun of me and entertain himself, he put me in the ring with Boyan, and he's told Boyan, take it easy and just dodge Neal's punches. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna kill this guy. By the way, I'm about, I'd say a good 60, 70 pounds bigger than Boyan, right? And so I start going at it, and I'm trying to hit him, and it's hard to hit him to begin with. And then, but
small.
Right? You know what I'm saying? But then I start, and then I start getting tired. This is 30 seconds in. You know what I'm saying? 30 seconds in, I'm like, how long am I supposed to be in here? And then Boyan just gives me a tap to the ribs, and I say, and I'm like,
done.
I'm like, whoa. How long am I in here? like a minute into this thing.
45 seconds. What?
100%. It's hard. It is. Boxing, folks, is hard. It's a real gut check. And that's the last thing I want to leave in this is, if you want a real gut check, and if you want to step into the fire, and if you want to challenge yourself, which I think is the only secret to growth and resilience, and the only secret to life is to challenge yourself and grow through that challenge. Combat sports, boxing, wrestling, all that, coming here, this is what it's about.
I do want to say one thing
Yes,
though.
sure.
Because I don't think that I touched in on this enough, but my current boxing coach, Sydney Vanderpool,
Yeah.
is honestly amazing. Like, he took me under his wing when he was focused on Mandy Bujol going into the Olympics. So he had one Olympian that he was focusing on, and he had so much faith in me that when he brought me in, he dialed into me right away, as if I was also going to the Olympics in that moment. He has been untethered. He has been as well so consistent, so unconditional with me. He has just gone through the motions with me. He works alongside with Gaetan to make sure that they're both working together to bring me to that next level.
Wow.
So both of them, and even the team and the gym that I'm at over there, it's like a family.
Wow.
Like Team Destiny is the name of the team. They are just such a beautiful community, and we all uplift each other so much. It's such a beautiful feeling when you walk into that gym. The energy circulates.
Wow.
You instantly feel welcomed, and you instantly feel like this is an only place for positive and growth.
Wow.
So I have to say, to not undermine him all, because I didn't mention him enough throughout this, but he is absolutely, I'm so forever grateful for my coaches, my father, my mom, that she stands here. She does not want to see people hit me, but she does. Honestly, I've been very fortunate to have these people.
That's that support network so again, I will stamp it right now. If you decide that you want to be a world and Olympic champion, you have everything you need.
Absolutely.
From your support network, my man Gaetan. No, it's being silly, but you have your support network, you have your work ethic, you have your brilliance and how smart you are, you do the work and your meticulousness, and you're a savage.
Thank you.
Right, you're able to dial more than the average person, more than the average competitor. You have everything you need. So I'm just gonna be watching, and I'm gonna enjoy the show. All right, and I can tell you, I'm very proud of you. Go get it. Go get it.
Thank you.
Everyone, Scarlett Delgado, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we shut off, Scarlett is fundraising. We're gonna put her links in the description. She's getting ready to go on a very tough journey, and the very least we can do is support her to the best that we can. I'm not going to get into how disappointed I am in Canadian sports and how little we support our athletes, but let's just say we need to give her as much support as we can. Let's blow this this podcast up and let everybody see this beautiful, intelligent, strong lady, and let's support her. Let's send her to the Worlds, and let's send her to the Olympics, and let's send her to that gold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Neal, for having me on this.
Yeah. My pleasure. All right, and that's a wrap.